going on, everybody? It is Thursday afternoon. Welcome to the Stokastic NHL Strategy Show, sponsored by Bet65. Bet365. I'm having quite a moment to start the show. I'm your host, Josh Harris. If you're playing NHL tonight, congrats on competing for tens of dollars. DraftKings completely butchered the GPPs tonight. There's nothing else really going on tonight. MLB has a day slate. Masters locked this morning. There's NBA, but that doesn't really affect NHL. I mean, I don't know. 14-game slate, $5K to first, and the $15 on DraftKings is disappointing, but not surprising. I would go on a rant, but it's going to just fall on here. So, Cliffy, how's your Thursday? It's very nice in New Jersey today.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe we'll save the rant for a day we don't have 14 games and 28 teams to break down because I'm super frustrated with the contest as well. I mean, it is what it is. It's the end of the season for DK. They don't really care about NHL in general. Most DFS sites don't. It is what it is. So we're just going to have to get through it. Not a nice day here. We're on day 2 of an ice storm, freezing rain. Hasn't been as bad here as it's been in Quebec and Ontario. So shout out to people, especially Eastern Ontario and into Quebec. There's 1 million people in Quebec without power, I think I saw, on their 3rd day without power. So pretty brutal storm for April. Hopefully not too much comes out of that. But this is the first show we had since Tuesday. You and Jake had a pretty big night there, thanks to the Detroit Red Wings a couple nights ago. Why don't you tell us about it?
That was the first slate I ever had like a decent team and I fell asleep. That's just like the signs that I'm just getting old.
Yeah.
Right. So I had the Red Wings top line. Dylan Larkin, shout out Dylan Larkin, 0-0-0 on 5 goals. That's fine though. David Perron had a big night, had all the bonuses possible, I think, except the block bonus, which he had 2 blocks. Bertuzzi had an assist, or not Bertuzzi. Kubalik had an assist, shot on goal. But then I also had them with Devin Levi, who outscored 60% Woll by 1 point and was 1 save away from the saves bonus. He played great, by the way. Had late night Colorado. Fell asleep at the start of that game. I was out of the cash. I woke up. I had the contest that I had open on my phone was the $9 queue or like satellite to win $100 master ticket. It was like a 9-person field or 12-person field, something like that. I ended up winning it. I was like, oh, so maybe I full cashed. So I clicked out of it and it goes into my winnings. I was like, oh,
yeah.
Yeah, so I finished second in the 333 for 5K. Not as good as night as our boss, Jake Hari, shipped the 15 with Jesperi Kotkaniemi.
And Jesse
Puljujärvi and Stefan Mason. This guy, every year, he'll have a bank, and it's just wild. He had a Brad Richardson one-off at 4 goals a few years ago at like 0.3%. So, like, he's very good with the optimizer. But the point that I'm trying to make there is single entry, MME, 2 completely different skill sets. Single entry, you don't really have to deal with the optimizers. MME, not only do you need to know what you're doing, you also need to know what you're doing with the optimizer. So congrats to Jake. He's a smart man. I've MME'd a few times this year, and I realized that, yeah, I know hockey, obviously, but I don't have the great skill set at using the optimizer like some of the better MME players do. So I'm going to save that for next year, learn, Fantasy Cruncher a bit better. So tonight's another night where you literally have to ship everything to win 5 figures, but we'll do it.
So we're going to try anyway.
We're going to try. 14-game slate, we probably should get to it. We don't have a show right after us, thankfully. Otherwise, I'd be, we wouldn't be talking about this win, but congrats to Jake. Congrats to anyone else who did well on Tuesday. I don't even remember what I did last night. I didn't even cash. Forgot to look. But yeah, we are sponsored by Bet365. We'll have a nice offer for you later in the show. As always, don't forget to sign up for the Stokastic Hall of Fame. Just go to stokastic.com/avatar, download that avatar. put it onto your DraftKings or FanDuel account. And if you place in the top 3 of a contest, $5K or more, which is not possible in NHL tonight, but it is possible in the other sports, you can tweet your win to @StokasticHOF on Twitter, or email us if you don't have the tweet machine, and you'll get 1 free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum, which is a $120 value. Access every single tool we have on the site. You can only, but yeah, you get the $120 value for free. So that is cool. I have not gotten into the Hall of Fame because the NHL contests are not big enough, but when I ship the $15 Millie Maker for the Masters, I will make sure that they let me in. I will not be shipping the Millie Maker with my one lineup. If I did, that would have been the most insane one of all time. That feels like 350,000 people. I'm sure I'm duped. Let's get into this slate. Let's start off with a doozy. Toronto Maple Leafs with a 2.7 total heading into Boston. The Bruins have a 3.2 total. Ilya Samsonite. I was way off. And Jeremy Swayman are confirmed. Man, it's so weird that you have these two teams that are locked in the playoffs, and you look at their top 2 stack percentage and their ownership, and it's almost non-existent on both sides here. I'm not really excited about playing both sides here. Boston has the President's Cup already locked up. They're just kind of hoping to avoid injury at the end of the season. Leafs are trying stuff. They're mixing and matching lines, this and that. So, like, in 1 to 3, it's hard to prioritize this game because neither team really has anything to play for. I think with the Rangers beating the Lightning last night, I'm pretty sure that almost locked up home ice in the first round for the Leafs. So they don't have too much to play for. So this is an MME game for me.
Yeah. Just going to start on the Boston side. With David Krejci out, Pavel Zacha is moving to center on the second line, and it's moving Tyler Bertuzzi to the top line. I don't really – I mean, that doesn't really change a lot. Like, Bertuzzi, Zacha, Pasternak, or Krejci, Zacha, Pasternak, like it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. Like that doesn't really change a whole lot for me. You raised a good point about these two teams. Like nobody's really owning them. Pretty low ownership on the Boston side, under 1% on each of the top 2 lines, which I think kind of makes sense when you're seeing how some of the players are being used. Obviously the ice time thing is something that we bring up a lot. Now, what we often say, generally speaking, is Boston doesn't play the top guys a lot when they're winning by a lot. By the same token, like I got to imagine this is one of the games they at least want to try. You know what? It's like somewhat like I expect they'll have a better effort tonight at home against Toronto than they did. What was it last week when they went into Chicago and lost?
Yeah.
I suspect they'll kind of get up for this game a little bit. One thing I noticed though was Boston's the top line's defensive metrics have been getting pretty bad. And I don't mean like just bad for Boston. I mean like bad for anyone. I was looking basically going back to the start of March. So, we're looking at over 5 weeks now. 3.2 expected goals against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5 is just a bad number for that top line. It's bad for almost anyone outside of Anaheim or Columbus. And it's horrific for this Boston team. And the thing is like the goals are kind of coming with it. 2.7 expected or 2.7 actual goals against per 60 over those last 5 weeks. That's, worse than league average. So they're starting to give it up a little bit. I'm not sure exactly why. Like, obviously, Patrice Bergeron is playing through something because he's been taking lots of practices off, taking games off, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe there's something to him not playing well. I also noticed their defensive numbers have been better with Orlov on the ice than without him, which didn't really make sense to me because he's typically not a good defensive defenseman. All this is to say, like, there's something fishy going on with that Boston top line. And like I said, it's not just the last couple of weeks. Like, we're going on 6 weeks of this now. Again, like, I know they haven't really cared, but that's pretty important for a game where they're going to be facing off against Austin Matthews, right? Even if they're saddling Matthews with a pair of boat anchors, like he could still score. Just look at his last game, right? I think he had 7 shots with a goal or something like that. And they're literally trying to put their worst players with them. I don't know why, but that's what they're doing. And it makes me kind of interested in Matthews as a one-off here tonight. I just don't know if I would get that. Like, there's 28 teams on this slate. Like, do I want to play a one-off Austin Matthews on the road in Boston, even if I think it might be a decent matchup? Like, I think there are reasons to play him. I don't know if I can get there with these many teams. I think I'm kind of getting into your boat. Like, I'm not super excited about stacking either side here. I think this is a game where I would be more interested in some of the one-offs. Like I said, certainly one-off Matthews is perfectly fine. Tyler Bertuzzi moving up to the second line to play with Pasternak. He's only 4K. I think he can use Tyler Bertuzzi as well. Like, I think there are some one-offs here I'd like. I don't know if I'm stacking anyone.
Yeah, and that's kind of the issue with one-offs on this slate. It's 14 games. So like these really big slates, I try to correlate as much as I can, so I have to get less right. Maybe I'll have a one-off. Maybe I'll have like a 2-man stack, but I'll generally try to correlate a bit more on the slate. But you know what? If you have a lineup that you really like and you need a Bertuzzi one-off, I'm perfectly fine with that. Like, if Bertuzzi's going to get his 15 minutes, I'm down for that. Let's move on to the next one here. I have problems with this game, and I'll explain them in a second. Buffalo Sabres with a 3.3 total. Heading into Detroit, the Red Wings have a 3.3 total. Devin Levi, still min-priced on DraftKings. Ville Husso are confirmed. Here's the issue I have. I both really like Detroit 1, and I really like Devin Levi. It would be quite a scene if I stacked Detroit 1 against Levi in a 14-game slate. I don't think I will get there. I've watched both of Levi's games, and I think you're onto something with this concentrate. He's like a Jedi. He in the timeouts, he just sits there like, it's kind of, I want to like go on the screen and do this and see if he starts blinking. It's kind of confusing, but he's looked good. He's still min price here. 3% projected ownership is not right. Like, projecting goalies are impossible, but he's gonna be pretty chalky tonight. That being said, is Tage Thompson in? No, right?
They said game time decision, but he wasn't practicing with the power play this morning, and they had Casey Middlestat skating in his line, so it looks like he's going to be out, but officially a game time decision.
Yeah. I mean, if he was confirmed in, I'd have a lot of interest in almost no-own Buffalo here because, Detroit's penalty kill is not great. Not a great defensive team. Although, as I say this, the lineup builder just popped Casey Middlestat onto the top line. Now, that cop line has been actually decent, so it would just be an ownership play. I think my favorite line still in this game is Detroit 1.
I agree with the Detroit 1 call. Like we said last show and a number of shows, whenever Lucas Raymond isn't with Larkin, we have interest in Larkin's line. Today is absolutely no different. The matchup is a good one too. Like, they've been switching, using Andrew Kopp in a shutdown role back and forth at different times this season. This is one of those situations where it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter if Larkin's going out against the top line or against the Cousins line. They're both equally bad defensively. So, like, the matchup doesn't really worry me that much. We talked about the power play the other day with Alex Chiasson but on the Detroit Red Wings and on the top power play unit. Like, he's helping them along. Like, there are a lot of good things about this Detroit top line to like here tonight. They are coming in over-owned 9% against a 5% top 2 stack probability. So there is that to consider, but I'm with you. I think it's just another good spot for them. The problem I'm running up into is I'm pretty sure I'm going to be playing Devin Levi again here tonight. Like, until
I have the same problem.
until they price him as an actual goalie in the, that's playing in the NHL, I'm finding it really hard to not play him, especially when he could see a lot of volume, right? That's kind of the thing that's really just making me like just not even consider Detroit. I think it's like it's like that either or thing. Like I could see myself easily playing Detroit 1 tonight if Levi was 7,400. But at 6,500, like I think I'm going to have to play him. So that's, it just is what it is. Just to touch on the Detroit second line quickly, I think whatever brief spurt they had of success is pretty much gone. They're kind of getting run over of late. 2.2 expected goals for, 3.2 against for Kopp and Raymond going back to the 1st of March. That's per 60 minutes. Only 43 shot attempts generated per 60 minutes and 5-on-5. Like they're not doing a lot. So it's Detroit 1 or bust. But like I said, I think I'd probably would just rather play Levi. On the Buffalo side, like without Tage Thompson, I think the top line is fine to use with Middlestat there, especially like it's such a big savings price-wise going from Thompson down to Middlestat. Problem is, one, Middlestat's a winger on DK, so that's a 3-wing top line. The others, I'm worried it'll make him a little bit more popular because Middlestat is like $4,500 cheaper than Tage Thompson or something like that. So I think Buffalo 1 is perfectly fine, but honestly, it's probably Buffalo 2 I'm more interested in on that side. They're very cheap. They're down around $12K. They played a lot of minutes in the last game. Not like super heavy, but I think Cousins was at 19 and Quinn was at like 17 or something like that, which
heavy for them.
Yeah, there were games where they were playing like 11 or 12 minutes about a month ago. So I really like that Buffalo 2 as kind of a filler stack here.
Yeah, I do like that Buffalo 2 call. It's that Levi Detroit 1 conundrum. Like I would feel awful just straight up putting Levi in and having Detroit 1 in my lineup. I just can't do that on a 14-game slate. But before we move on, we have a $5.99 or sorry, he's a little cheaper than that. A $4.99 super chat from our good pal Matt Nihas. Thank you for the super chat. He says, "Do you recommend trading a van for a moped?" Thanks for another great season, gents. What you should do, Matt, I'm going to call you Matt. I've been calling you Nihas for like 5 years, but I'm going to call you Matt. Because you need to learn how to butcher. And then if you learn how to butcher, we can open up the steakhouse in St. Louis, and we'll have a steakhouse called the Steakhouse. So trade in the van, learn how to butcher, get a restaurant. Thank you for the super chat. Always a pleasure having you in Discord. This is, I think, the 6th or 7th season we've been in the same Discord together. You keep me busy throughout the year. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I'll just say thanks a lot for the super chat. I'm going to leave you and Josh to open your steakhouse together, and I'll just come and visit every once in a while to see how you guys are making out.
Free steaks for Cliffy whenever
I'll take it. I'll take it.
As long as not in a catering tray. Let's move on. Ottawa Senators with a 2.8 total heading into Florida. The Panthers have a 4.1 total. Levi Merilainen, Alex Leone confirmed. Florida has had a 4 total for like a month straight now. Like they have 2 lines here. Now, the differences between this slate and the slate on Tuesday when they're playing Buffalo is there's no Devin Levi in that, although Levi Merilainen actually looked pretty good the other night. That being said, Senators' penalty kill is not great. That's another issue with the Panthers. You'd have to go across 3 even strength lines here. So I think you just go back to, full stacking even strength lines here. And it's kind of what you want to do because Lundell and Luosterainen are pretty cheap. Like that line is 16 and change with Tkachuk there. The top line is a little bit more expensive. They're like 19 and change or maybe even 20. So it's kind of like how you want to build. The problem is Lundell isn't on a power play unit. He only plays like 14 minutes. Luosterainen on the second unit. I think just talking about it right now, I've talked myself into preferring Florida 1 here. That being said, Alex Leon has been excellent the past week or so, but I still have interest here in the Senators top line.
I will always have interest in the Senators top line. It's just, like we said in the last show, Barkov and Duclair typically had good defensive numbers this year. Took a little bit of a beating in their last game. Also noticed like Duclair's not getting super heavy ice time, only about 14 minutes a game. That's a little bit of a problem from the Florida side, but I'm not super concerned on the Ottawa end for those reasons. And the other reason to play Ottawa is all the penalties Florida takes, right? Like these are, in fact, it's both sides. These are both two of the most penalized teams in the league, and also two teams that draw the most power plays. There should be a lot of power plays in this one. But one thing I was looking at with regards to the Ottawa power play is it hasn't been quite the same with Jake Sanderson there as with Thomas Chabot. And I don't think that should really surprise anybody, but without him, the Sens generate about 10% more shot attempts. The goals are up something like 20%. That's with Chabot. Like with Sanderson, it's worse. That's a little bit concerning because, like we always say, Ottawa, their DFS value thrives for a lot of teams do, but Ottawa especially, their DFS value thrives with the power play. So that is a bit of a concern to me. But I'm with you, like considering the pretty low ownership we're seeing on Ottawa here, and Tim Stützle is playing like 23 minutes a game. This line's perfectly correlated on the power play. I'm with you. I do like Ottawa 1 here. I like the Florida side as well. It's just a matter of where to go because you're facing that same problem again of, got one forward on 3 different lines on the top power play unit, which is, that's just kind of always drives us nuts. But, Barkov and Duclair do generate a lot of offense this year. They're at 3.6 expected goals for per 60 minutes, 4.1 actual goals. Those are great, great numbers. Barkov, for how much we kind of slagged him earlier in the season, I was looking his last 15 games, which basically goes back to the start of March, over 3 shots per game and 22 points. The thing that's keeping him from being even better is I think he's only shooting like 8% in that stretch. If he was shooting like 12, 13, 14%, he'd be on like a real kind of a nuclear stretch right now. Just kind of goes to show how well, how much better he could be producing. So I really do like both top lines here in this game. I think I would lean to the Ottawa top line just because of the perfect power play correlation, but there's a lot to like all over this matchup.
Yeah, your point about Chabot and Sanderson, I'm not super concerned. Like they're different players, right? On the power play, Jake Sanderson's more of a facilitator. Chabot's more of a grip it and rip it type of point man. But as long as Brady Tkachuk's got his big ass down in front of the net, like I still think it's all right. But yeah, if Sanderson starts shooting a bit more, then I think the numbers pick back up. It's always interesting to get the Tkachuk games. The last time this happened, I played Matt Tkachuk and Brady Tkachuk went off. Now I'm thinking about playing Brady Tkachuk, and I think Matt Tkachuk's going to go off. But just Chuck stack. How about that?
Okay.
Washington Capitals with a 3.6 total heading into Montreal. The Canadiens have a 2.9 total. Darcy Kemper, Dikembe Samuel Montembeault is confirmed here. Hate this game. Burning passion. You could just put me on a loop with the Capitals games. Just I hate this game. I hate this game. But here's the thing, right? Ovechkin going into Montreal, who had probably one of the worst penalty kills in the league, 3.5% projected ownership. Even if that's like 5-6%, I think Ovechkin's a very good one-off. I think the top line's a very good play just from an ownership standpoint. They're 3.6 total. It is on the road, but it's fine. Montreal's terrible. Defensively, anyway. Like, the Canadiens still have almost a 3 total. They've been scoring. Like, they have some pretty good lines. I don't know if I'd full stack them, but they have pieces that I like that are cheap that you can play, like a Brandon Gallagher, Dennis Gurianov, Mike Hoffman, Nick Suzuki. Capitals, let's not forget, like, they have been eliminated from the playoffs. They have nothing else to play for. They've kind of sneakily are tank rebuilding. Like, I don't know what they're doing really, but I kind of have some interest in some of these Montreal guys.
Yeah, I just want to mention one thing. I know, like, don't get me wrong. I know Montreal is definitely a bad defensive team, and they're just a bad team in general. That's why I'm wearing my Montreal jersey, because this might be the last time they win even have a chance to win a game this season. But since the trade deadline, which it's been 14 games for Washington, 17 games for Montreal. At 5-on-5, Washington has a worse expected goals against and a worse goals against mark than Montreal does.
Yeah, they're bad. Real bad.
Horrific. Now, John Carlson came back during March, so like maybe they're kind of getting a little bit better, and it's not being captured by moving averages, but they've been pretty horrific for a while. I was looking at their record for their last 23 games. They've lost 17 of their last 23 games or something like that. Like, this isn't a good Washington team. Like, I'm sorry. The problem is like, this is a very bad Montreal team as well. And Raphael Harvey-Pinard being back is going to put him on the top line with Nick Suzuki, and Harvey-Pinard is still very expensive. He's at 5,500. Now, he was shooting a little bit more before he got injured. He had 15 shots in 5 games before he got injured, but he's typically not been shooting much this season. 55 is a lot. Suzuki, like Joel Armia being on the top line is, as a Habs fan, just drives me absolutely insane. Like, this is, like, you're a Rangers fan, this is Barclay Goodrow playing on the top line, and I mean that. And like, he's just going to make the I'm gonna say he's gonna make the line worse, but it's not like they're going into a bad matchup. But honestly, I think I'm going back to my not tried and true, but definitely tried at least. Drouin and Gurianov, they've been a fairly good two-man, 2.7 expected goals for, 2.7 actual goals for per 60 minutes at 5-on-5 and over 115 minutes together. The problem is none of them are on the power play, or the top power play unit anyway. That kind of sucks because it has been getting a little bit better, but they are very cheap, coming in, over-owned, but, you got to expect that with the line so cheap. So I don't mind like a Drouin Gurianov two-man or something like that. That's about it. On the Washington side, it's the top line. Like, you can go to back, like a two-man, a Backstrom Milano or something like that if you want, but with Montreal's penalty kill being as bad as it has, like basically all season, but certainly, over the last 16, 17 games, going back to the start of March, I think they're last by goals against per minute on the penalty kill over the last 5 weeks. So the entire top line looks to be perfectly correlated. Strome, Wilson, and Ovechkin, they're coming in under-owned as well. I got to say, Washington 1 is lining up to be one of not my favorite top stack on the slate, but it's certainly going to be amongst the 4 or 5 top lines that I'll be considering as a primary stack for my single lineup tonight.
As much as I want to disagree with that, because I hate stacking Washington, I agree. And that pains me to say, because I hate stacking Washington. Let's talk about a team I do like stacking now. Kent Johnson. No, not Kent Johnson. I do like playing Kent Johnson, but not tonight. Columbus Blue Jackets, the 2.5 total heading into New Jersey. The Devils have a 4.4 total. If you're playing the Blue Jackets, you're going to have a 4.4 total. Like, I'm pretty sure the last 5 opponents for the Blue Jackets have had a 4.4 total. Michael Hutchinson, Vitek Vanacek are probable. Devils going Hughes, Barat, Palat, Heischer, Mercer, Tatar, and then Timo Meyer, Halla, Bachwist. Columbus, Jenner, Gaudreau, Marchenko, then Roslovic, Ken Johnson, Liam Foudy. Not that is really relevant. I don't have too much interest in the depth of Columbus. I don't have a ton of interest in Columbus top line, but if you do get to them in MME, I think that's fine. The question is what to do on the New Jersey side here. The Hughes line getting, they're having a little bit of negative leverage. Nothing, too bad. Same with the Heischer line, but they're cheaper. They're less owned. And Dawson Mercer's coming off a hat trick. It's just a question of what you want to do, because I think you can even just play the third line too. That's how bad, Columbus is. You could just stack Holla and Timo Meier and call it a day. They're just so bad defensively. They're so bad on the penalty kill. I'm probably looking to double center Heischer and Hughes and then add in a Timo or Bratt, probably Bratt, and then go about my day, really. I think it's a power play stack that I like here.
Yeah, just want to note real quick. I don't think Eric Hall is playing tonight. I think Nathan Bastian's back in the lineup, and he's moving up to that line with Meier and Bachvis. Not that it makes a huge difference. I think they should still just have Eric Hall and Jack Hughes playing together. I know we made fun of that combination a lot, but in real hockey terms, they were pretty good. DFS, not so much, but it's hard not to go back to that Hischier line. I was really kicking myself for not using them on Tuesday night. I wanted to pair them with Colorado. I didn't. I put St. Louis instead, and I paid dearly for that. But that Hischier, Mercer, Tatar line, we said it on Tuesday, they just keep generating over the last 4 weeks. 4 expected goals for per 60 minutes at 5-on-5, 3 actual goals. Nico Hischier, 31 shots and 12 points in his last 10 games. They're fairly cheap. Yes, they're going to come in pretty highly owned. I think you can do something like, we always say double center. So I think you can do like a Hughes, Hischier, Tatar, or Hughes, Hischier, Mercer, or something like that, even if Mercer's not on the power play. Certainly you can do like a Hischier, Hughes, Bratt. It is the top line that I still like. Like the Columbus top line is not good defensively. The Columbus second line, even worse defensively, but it doesn't really matter for matchup purposes. Like I just want to keep playing the line that I know has been good in a large sample for basically this entire season, and that's the Hischier line. But like I said, with how bad Columbus is penalty, like you can't really blame Columbus. They're missing basically like every NHL defenseman they have, whether by trade or injury or otherwise. But the penalty kill's just fallen apart over the last 5 or 6 weeks to where it's been one of the worst in the league. Not that New Jersey's power play has been particularly good, but I think this is a case where you can not necessarily even strength stack and kind of lean more towards a power play stock on the Jersey side. Nothing for me from Columbus. I would have interest in the Columbus top line, like you said, in an MME format. I think they're pretty reasonably priced, and as bad as they are defensively, they're north of 3 expected goals per 60 minutes over the last 4 weeks, which is pretty good shot generation. So Columbus won if you're playing a ton of lineups, I think there should be some interest there, but it's more New Jersey one and New Jersey power play guys.
Yep, I am in agreement there. The best way to make money from the books is to take advantage of great promo offers when they become available. And as you know, we are sponsored by Bet365, and we have a great offer from them. Click the link in the description below to take advantage. Bet $1, get 200 in bonus bets at Bet365. Obviously, a deposit is required. Bet winnings are added to bonus bet balance, and the bonus bet wager excluded from returns. This is available in New Jersey, Colorado, Ohio, and Virginia. They are expanding to more states as the year goes on, so make sure if you're one of those states, just keep it in mind. But for $1, you get $200 in bonus bets. You can bet on anything you want tonight. Avs are in San Jose again. Maybe a Meek or maybe a Nathan McKinnon goal. But yeah, if it loses, you'll still get the bonus bets. So check out that link in the description below, and let's get to it. Minnesota Wild with a 2.9 total heading into Pittsburgh. The Penguins have a 3.2 total. Marc-Andre Fleury, Tristan Jarry are confirmed. Now, this is interesting because there's not much ownership here on this game. There's a couple lines that I like here. I like the Crosby line. They've been producing. They just haven't been finishing. They're coming in around 5%. They're more than their ownership is less than half of their top 2. They have very good positive leverage here. They're going to avoid the meat grinder lines for the Wild. And on the flip side, I really like this Joel Eriksson, Matt Boldy line. They have no ownership, and Pittsburgh is awful defensively. Like, we talk about how good they are offensively, they're trash defensively. So, like, I think you can go – there are multiple lines on both sides that I like.
I can't believe I'm actually It's blowing my mind that it's a 14-game slate, and I'm strongly considering a Minnesota line with Kirill Kaprizov injured. That's exactly where the Pittsburgh Penguins are at this point. I was looking over the last 3 weeks. Each of their top two lines are at 3 expected goals, or right around 3 expected goals against per 60 or worse at 5-on-5. So that speaks to how bad they've been defensively, like you said. So I don't think whether they see the Crosby line or the Malkin line, like, it doesn't matter for me from a defensive perspective. In fact, I was looking at some game logs from Pittsburgh's last few home games. They've been using Drew O'Connor and Jeff Carter to shut down roll. That's where the team is at this point of the season. They are scrambling and panicking so bad that 39 or 46-year-old Jeff Carter is eating shutdown minutes as they try to earn their way to the playoffs. Anyways, I don't have a lot of interest in Pittsburgh. I'm going to be honest here. The top line has been scoring. They've been generating a lot. The only bad Minnesota line from a defensive perspective has been Hartman and Zuccarello. I think Sam Steele in a small sample has helped, but they have typically been pretty bad. But a couple things. One, the goaltending has generally been good for Minnesota. Two, they don't take a ton of penalties. Like, they're really bang on the league average. The Minnesota penalty kill has generally been pretty good, and Pittsburgh's power play has generally been very bad. I know that there's not a ton of ownership coming in on Pittsburgh, top line at 5%, second line at 2 to 3%. Like, I have no problem really playing Crosby, Gensel, and Rust with the hopes that they're going to go into that Hartman and Zuccarello line, which isn't a bad matchup. But you're just kind of hoping for that matchup only and nothing else. And you're kind of hoping that they break through on a power play that is really just kind of, puking all over the place when they go on the ice. So I'm fine playing Pittsburgh from an ownership perspective, and that's something that's pretty important for DFS. I just don't think I really necessarily like the spot for them. Like, they're basically in the same price range as Ottawa's top line, and I think I'd rather play Ottawa's top line tonight going into Florida than I would Pittsburgh one. So I mean, same thing with the Florida top line. Like, I'd rather play either the Florida or the Ottawa top line than I would Pittsburgh one here tonight, and they're all basically in the same price range. So that's why I'm not super high on Pittsburgh. On the Minnesota side, it's the Marcus Johansson line. I got to give him props, man. I didn't think Marcus Johansson would make that big of a dent or be a big deal at all for Minnesota. And at least so far, they've been really, really good. The Eriksson, Boldy, Johansson line has. I was looking just over the last 3 weeks to kind of see if there was, any significant fall off from a hot start. Still north of 3 expected goals per 60 at 5-on-5 over the last 3 weeks for that line. All on the top power play unit, all playing 18 to 20 minutes. I think Eriksson, Boldy, and Johansson is the line I like best in this game. I don't mind them as one of those middle price lines here tonight.
Yeah, they've been good. Pittsburgh's been bad. No ownership. Maybe it comes up through the day. Maybe now that we put the spotlight on, I don't think we move ownership that much. We live in a bubble here, but maybe they come in a little bit higher on. But let's move on to Tampa Bay with a 2.7 total. Heading into New York, that sucks. The Islanders have a 3.2 total. Brian Elliott is confirmed. Ilya Sorokin is probable. Lightning played last night. They got, I don't know. I watched that Rangers game. The Rangers it was like a tale of 3 games. They started off really strong, then they fell apart for a period, and then they picked it back up, and they won 6-3. Don't have too much interest in the Lightning back-to-back on the road right near the playoffs going into Sorokin. That being said, I do have a little bit of interest in the Nelson, Palmieri, Engvall line, especially with Elliott and net. Tampa hasn't been anything special defensively recently, so if I was going to play a line in this game, it would be Nelson, Palmieri.
Yeah. One thing I will mention on the Tampa side Anthony Cirelli got dinged up in the game yesterday, right? And it forced them to kind of switch around their depth lines. So we don't know exactly what the Tampa lineup is going to look like, and I don't think we're going to know until warmups. So just keep that in mind if you're playing the Tampa side. Like, in a nutshell, I have no interest in Tampa in this game. It's a terrible power play spot for them. Their last 5 weeks, that loaded top line's at 2.8 expected goals for per 60 minutes. The only reason they're scoring is because they're shooting 15%. They're a very talented line. 15% is too high. Like, anything above 12% would really make me kind of, perk an eye up. So where they're not generating a lot and really relying on percentages, it's like, do I really want to play them going into Long Island? Not really. Not at 22,200. If you want to one-off somebody, I guess you can do that. I just don't think I want to pay that high of a price on the road. When, if they're 0.5% owned on a 7-game slate, I'd say, okay, maybe we can talk. When there's 28 teams playing, I just don't feel the need to force it in a single entry. So I'm out on Tampa. On the Islanders side, I think both top lines are really in play here. Both the Horvat, Lee, and Holmstrom line, as well as Nelson, Palmieri, and Engvall. Both lines have 2 guys on the top power play unit. Tampa's penalty kill, it's been really struggling, and it's not just been over the last month. It's basically been since the All-Star game, maybe even earlier than that, which is like 2+ months now. The Islanders' power play hasn't really been anything like super elite. What I will note is, like, their shot generation hasn't really fallen off that much without Matt Barzal. It's down like 7 to 8%, 7 to 8, not 78 percent. It's a bit, but it's not significant. Engvall's been playing really, really well on that second line as well. So I think both lines are perfectly in play here. It's just kind of a matter of what you need price-wise. I would lean to Nelson, Palmieri, and Engvall, but they're coming in a little bit over-owned for my liking. So I think Horvat, Lee, and Holmstrom would be more the play for me here. But I think both Islanders lines are firmly in play here. And they're in a nice spot where, especially if you play the Nelson, Palmieri, Engvall line, they're basically a filler tonight. So you can still go out and go play like a Colorado stack or something. So I think it's the Islanders' second line I like in this game, especially with Brian Elliott starting.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't know how much I'm going to get to the Islanders on a 14-game slate, but they might be in consideration in the Nelson line anyway for my 1 to 3. Let's move on to the next one. Carolina with a 3.1 total heading into Nashville. The Predators have a 2.3. I'll be quick. No interest in Nashville. It doesn't really matter what line they go out against. The Hurricanes are an absolute meat grinder defensively. It's just insane how, losing Svechnikov is going to hurt them offensively, but man, they are nasty defensively. If you get to Novak, Evangelista, and MME, that's fine. Like, if it's in one of your last lineups, that's fine. For me, it's the Carolina top line or nothing really. Like, I think Aho Netchus is fine with Martinook. I don't really want to go back to that Kotkaniemi Nyson line. Like, I guess they're fine because they're so cheap. They can be like a decent filler. But if I'm going to spend at all, that Carolina top line's like 15 and change, and they're where I'm looking at.
Yeah, the Carolina top line, that Aho Netchus line, with Seth Jarvis there, is at 2.3 expected goals against per 60 minutes of 5-on-5 this year. That number is about 12% better than the league average. And that's their worst defensive line. We were talking about Kotkaniemi and Puljujarvi earlier in this show. We're also talking about them in the Discord this morning. Those guys on the ice, even Kotkaniemi and Stefan Noesen, like a meat grinder kind of undersells it. Like, the people just do not get quality shots off and barely even get shots off when those guys are on the ice. So no interest in Nashville. Carolina, that second line's coming in heavily owned. And the problem for me here is they said Teuvo Teravainen is a game-time decision. And Teravainen had been playing a little bit next to Kotkaniemi. He had been also playing a little bit with Aho. He's been playing on all the top 3 lines, actually. And it worries me that, 7th, 35 Eastern's going to roll around, and all of a sudden, we have a Teravainen, Puljujärvi, and Nason second line. And, Teravainen and Puljujärvi don't have a huge price difference, but it is $1,000. Like, it's something you have to factor in if you're playing any Carolina line tonight, because if Teravainen comes in, there could be a big blendering going on. I think Necas and Aho certainly will be staying together. I think Kotkaniemi and Nason, will be staying together. It's just a matter of playing 3-man forward lines that I'm not sure of. I agree with you. I think it is the Carolina top line that I prefer here. I think this is another game where I'm going to be looking for one-offs. Certainly a one-off Nason, one-off Necas, maybe something on the blue line. I just don't see myself stacking on either side here. It's another one of those games where I think I'd rather play UC Saros starting at home for Nashville at 7,100 than any Carolina stack.
Yeah, I'm kind of in agreement there. 7,100 Saros at home is very enticing. Would have been way more enticing if Devin Levi wasn't in price.
Yeah.
New York Rangers, they 3.6 total. Heading into St. Louis, the Blues have a 2.9 total. Yaroslav Halak is probable. Rangers played last night. It was Igor. Jordan Binnington confirmed. I would imagine, the Rangers won 11-7 last night. Patty Kane was out with a lower body. I would imagine he comes back in tonight. Someone else might come out, though. So just be aware of that.
Well, Trouba probably, right?
Yeah, Trouba got rocked.
Yeah, he didn't come back. Now they said he traveled. They said that he traveled with the team, but because that happened like 5 minutes into the game, right?
Yeah,
5-10 minutes, and he never came back.
Yeah.
I can't imagine he's going to play the very next night on the road when playoffs are a week away or whatever, 10 days away.
Yeah, Ryan Lindgren's back though, so.
Yeah, so I'm, maybe somebody comes in on the blue line or something like that for Trouba, and then they still stay 11-7 or whatever. But
yeah, but you just have to see. Blues going with Kyrou, Shen, Saad, Buchnevich, I believe, is back with Vrana and Neighbors, and then the third line of Kasperi Kapanen, Sammy Blais, Josh Levo. There is no ownership on the Blues here. Rangers aren't a very good defensive team. Not that Trouba being out improves their defense. It doesn't, because who's going to come in for him? Ben Harper. And Ben Harper, not very good defensively. So I don't know. Kind of have some interest in these Blues lines here. There's no ownership on them. I think they're a sneaky GPP target.
I kind of like both sides here. I'm not going to lie. I'll start with the St. Louis side. The top line of Saad, Shen, and Kyrou is starting to get to a workable sample. They're up to about 80 minutes together at 5-on-5. And they're abysmal, horrific, terrible. I don't know what else to say. 1.6 expected goals for, 3.6 expected goals against per 60 minutes. Now, sometimes with St. Louis lines, they have a system that can kind of game the expected goals, so it can kind of lie to you a little bit. Then you look at the actual goals, 1.4 actual goals for per 60, 3.9 against per 60. They're giving up almost 80 shot attempts per 60 minutes. That Saad Shen Kyrou line is just terrible. Awful. Now, would I play them in DFS? Yes, I would. I wouldn't necessarily play them tonight, though, because they're probably going to be used in a shutdown role out against Kreider and Zibanejad, I think. And that Kreider-Zibanejad line with Jimmy Vesey there has been pretty good defensively this season. 2.3 expected goals against, 2.4 actual goals against, and almost 150 minutes together at 5-on-5. So out on St. Louis 1, in on Rangers 1. Kreider-Zibanejad both on the top power play unit. Assuming that Kane is still out here tonight. They're reasonably priced at 15,500 on DK. St. Louis doesn't take a lot of penalties, so that's a problem, but their goaltending when they do get on the penalty kill is absolutely terrible. So I kind of like the Rangers top line here, even though it is a back-to-back on the road. I also like the St. Louis second line with Pavel Buchnevich back, because Buchnevich and Vrana, small sample, but at least 54% of the shot attempt share when they're on the ice together, generating 66 shot attempts per 60 minutes. Those are good offensive numbers. Vrana by himself has 30 shots over his last 10 games. Even though he's not playing 19 minutes a night, he's still putting up 3 shots a game, which is pretty good. And that Rangers second line with Tarasenko there is bad defensively. 3.1 expected goals against per 60 minutes of 5-on-5, and Shesterkin's not starting tonight. So I don't mind that St. Louis second line here tonight either. Buchnevich, Vrana, Neighbors. Like, if you want to just leave off Neighbors, I think you can. Like, I don't know why. Like, stop trying to make fetch happen, Berube. So, you can leave off Neighbors if you want, but I do like Buchnevich and Vrana in their matchup here tonight against that Rangers second line. But I think the line I like best in this game is the Rangers top line.
Yeah, and I think the kids are all right as well if you would need a filler. But, they only play like 13, 14 minutes. Although Capo Caco's been going to the net and shooting the puck more. He had a shot bonus last night, which was nice to see.
Yeah.
Philadelphia Flyers with a 2.4 total. Heading into Dallas, the Stars have a 3.6 total. Carter Hart, Jake Ottinger confirmed. Looks like Rupe Hintz is out tonight. Tyler Seguin taking his spot on the top line. Flyers top line, Konechny, Tippett, Frost. Ben Johnson. What?
Because Frost got booted off after the first period last game, I'm pretty sure.
I mean, whatever Torts is going to do, Torts is going to do.
See, that's what I started doing when I researched the games is I don't even consider Philadelphia centers anymore. I just load up pairs of wingers. I think Kevin Hayes might be like the one exception, but I just load up pairs of wingers, see how they're playing together, and then just wait to see what center they announce at warm up.
Yeah, but the Flyers. This isn't a very good matchup anyway. I don't have any interest in the Flyers. I do have some interest in that Dallas top line, even with Seguin there. He was there for a little while earlier in the season when Rupe was out. They had very good numbers. Seguin is $2,600 cheaper than the Rope. I would imagine he also slides into power play 1. So I think that line is going to be fully correlated. They have my interest. It's just going to be a matter of they're getting double-digit ownership on a 14-game slate. It's just whether if you want to eat it or not.
Yeah. Just touching on Philly real quick. Like, the only thing I might have interest in is Tippett and Konechny. And if you're to play the two of them on DraftKings, they average 6,700. So, like, playing an average of $6,700 Philadelphia Flyer wingers on the road in Dallas on a 14-game slate with a week left in the season just feels like the absolute fishiest possible move you can make. So,
so you're saying there's a chance?
Yeah, absolutely. One of those situations where I would probably be considering the Flyers top line if I was playing. I mean, you can't even play 150 tonight because the $15 only have 47 entries.
Yeah,
but
you can like 40.
Yeah. Even if, you're playing 45 lineups, I might have a couple, Tippett, Konechny, 2-mans or something like that. But they're certainly not in consideration for me for single entry. I mean, on the Dallas side, it's just the ownership that's a problem for me. I don't have a problem with playing them, but they are probably going to come in fairly high, with a fair amount of ownership. Like you said, considering how much Seguin saves off from Rope Hintz, I still think they're fine to play. Joel Pavelski's been on a nice little tear here lately. I think he has 19 points in his last 15 games or something like that. That was a guy that we were making fun of a lot not that long ago. I'll be honest. I think going to the filler of Ben Johnston and Dodonov is kind of what I like better here. Tippett and Konechny haven't been bad defensively this year. Like, at least they're close to league average. And, the rest of the Philly lineup is nothing that I'm that worried about. So I think it's Ben Johnston, Dodonov. They've been pretty good, especially over the last couple months. And they're priced like a filler. So I think it's that line I actually like best in this game. I think I'm going to let other people play, possibly, 8, 9, 10% on Tyler Seguin here tonight.
Yeah, that does make some sense. I've generally liked that line Wyatt Johnston's kind of cooled off a little bit. He was on it's like 78 games in the season. He's like 12 years old. He's eventually going to get tired. Maybe hit a little bit of a wall, but I think he'll be fine. Let's move on to Chicago with a 2.7 total heading into Vancouver. The Canucks have a 3.8 total. Alex Stalock is probable. Thatcher Demko is confirmed. Looks like Beauvillier back on that top line with Pettersson and Kuzmenko. Second line of JT Miller, Brock Besser, Philip De Giuseppe. Chicago going with Taves, Reichel, and Anthony Ciu, Tyler Johnson, Radish, Dickinson. Normally I wouldn't read those, but I think there may be some merit to the Taves line tonight. I'll have to get your thoughts on that. In 1 to 3, no. But like in your MME mix, Andre Anthony Ciu has been on a heater. On the Vancouver side, you look at the JT Miller line, they're coming in around 16%, which is quite absurd. $2,400 more to go up to the Pettersson, Kuzmenko, Beauvillier line. They're around their top 2 stack percentage. That's the line I'm interested in. Pettersson's had a monster season. Kuzmenko's had a very good rookie season. Beauvillier is probably the best winger to be with them. I don't know why they yo-yo him around, but that's the line I'm looking at.
Yeah, kind of surprisingly, these two teams are two of the teams that have improved defensively, right? Vancouver Canucks were certainly a punching bag team that we made fun of quite a bit. But as we mentioned on the last show, they have gotten better defensively. And over the last 4 weeks, their expected goals against is top 10 in the league and better than teams like Calgary and Boston. That's a little bit of a problem because the actual goals against are basically right in line. 7th fewest goals against at 5-on-5 over the last 4 weeks. The combination of Rick Tocchet coming in, Oliver Ekman-Larsson being sent to Robidas Island, and Thatcher Demko coming back have all really helped this team kind of turn themselves around defensively from being one of the worst in the league to at least respectable. And that's the one thing that's kind of keeping me from being super in on Chicago. I'm with you. If anything, it would be the Taves line because they are coming in with a little bit lower ownership. You get Anthony Ciu and Reichel on the top power play unit. But all the Chicago lines are coming in with a fair bit of ownership. And I just think there are other spots you can go for your filler. Like I always say, I'm fine with one-offs. Like a Tyler Johnson one-off, I think makes sense. He has 15 shots in his last 5 games, so he's been shooting the puck a little bit. Like a Tyler Johnson one-off makes sense. An Anthony Ciu one-off makes sense. It's hard for me to full stack Chicago here, considering I think Vancouver's just gotten a lot better defensively over the last month. It's kind of something that bears out if you just look at the games. 4 goals against Los Angeles, 5 against Calgary, 6 against St. Louis. Those are bad starts. Then other than that, you're looking at 2-1, 2-4, 2-1, 2. Like, they've really been locking things down defensively outside of a couple games over the last 6 weeks. So not super high on Chicago. On the Vancouver side, yes, I'm with you on the Pettersson, Beauvillier, Kuzmenko line having been pretty good this year. Kind of leaning to the JT Miller, Besser, Di Giuseppe line. And it's for this reason is that I think they're going to go out against the Anthony Ciu, Jonathan Taves line here. And Anthony Ciu and Jonathan Taves have just been terrible together this season. 3.1 expected goals against, 4.1 actual goals against at 5-on-5. Those are just awful defensive numbers. You can't blame Taves. Like you can tell his body's just kind of let him down over the last few years. I mean, it is what it is. This is it feels like this is a swan song. These are the last few games you're going to get to see of Jonathan Taves. It's just unfortunate that from a DFS perspective, you kind of have to pick against them because for those exact reasons. So I think it's the Miller, Besser, Di Giuseppe line I like best here tonight, but I think either of the Vancouver top lines are fine.
Yeah. Taves in his prime was so good, but yeah, he's far from that. Get access to our MLB content, projections, ownership, top stacks tools, top pitchers tools, top data tool, lineup generator, Discord, and much more. Just $9 for your first 9 days. Click the link in the description below. and it will pull up the promo code that you need. Like, it'll put it in for you. You don't have to do anything. So click the link in the description below. If you are having issues with it, you can go on the site and use promo code PLAYBALL first 9 days just for $9. Let's move on to the next one. Yeah, we have the Los Angeles Kings with a 2.6 total heading into Vegas. The Golden Knights have a 2.7. Joonas Korpisalo and Laurent Brossoit are confirmed. Rare to see a 5.5 in today's day and age in the NHL. I just don't have too much interest. Surprisingly, when the totals are low, I generally have interest in the game, but this is just, the Kings are pretty good defensively here. Like, Vegas isn't great defensively, but they don't take too many penalties. If anything, this is an MME game. Oh boy.
Yeah. Should note for Los Angeles, all the guys that have been out lately, they just said are going to be out again tonight. So that means no Fiala, no Velarde, no Mikey Anderson, no Alex Edler. Fiala and Velarde are big losses, man. I was looking at, one thing I've been talking about on this show is the Kings second line with Trevor Moore there versus the Kings second line with Kevin Fiala there. It's basically night and day offensively. With Kevin Fiala there, their goal scoring goes up like 40%. It's not like a small margin. The reason for that is Trevor Moore's just not a good finisher. He never has been, and it's, maybe he will be at some point in the future, but he's certainly not right now. Going back to last year, that Kings second line with Trevor Moore there, they generate a lot. They don't finish a lot, though, and that's always a problem in DFS. You need those percentages to go in your direction. So I'm not in so much on Kings 2 without Fiala there, but Kings 1 is interesting to me because their expected goals generated have been going down pretty steadily, basically over the last few weeks. But one thing that was mentioned on our last show by one of the people in chat, and I think it's important to bring up, is there's a pretty big difference between the Kings offensively on the road and the Kings offensively at home. I think part of that is just dictating matchups. But the expected goals for number, the defense is basically the same for the Kings top line, whether home or away, but it's the offense really dries up when they're on the road. Over their last 3 weeks overall, 2.2 expected goals for, but the expected goals for are 30% higher when they're at home. You usually expect teams to be better at home. That's just the way sports work in general. 30% is extreme. And, I'm not so sure that I want to play Kings 1 on the road here, especially where they're up near 16K. I just think there are other places to play in that price range, but I will say I don't hate them here tonight. On the Vegas side, I just have no interest. They've moved their lines around, right? Like Barbashev got moved down. I think Dorofeyev is up on the top line now. I don't have a whole lot of interest in Vegas against this Kings team. Even without Fiala and Velarde there, they might be even better defensively than they would otherwise be. So, if anything, the Kings top line, but I think I'm with you. I'm not super high on stacking anything here.
Yeah. Let's move on to a replay of Tuesday, or a run back of Tuesday. Colorado Avalanche with a 3.9 total. Heading into San Jose, the Sharks have a 2.7 total. Alexander Georgiev is probable. Capo Kakkonen is confirmed. Looks like the lines are going to be run back on the Avalanche side. Makar is out. That got announced while we're on the air. Devin Tays is going to be running power play 1 again. Looks like Noah Gregor moving up to San Jose 2 with Hertl and Peterson. That line is a bit interesting considering how cheap they are, and they're going to avoid the McKinnon line, and Colorado 2 is nothing to write home about. I love Colorado 1 here again, even with Evan Rodriguez there. I think, you can leave him off if you want, but I think adding him in at 4,700 is completely fine. He'll be the lowest owned of the trio for sure. That is where I'm looking at Colorado 1, San Jose 2.
Yeah, I don't mind Peterson and Hertl. I really don't, because they have been generating offensively at least. 2.8 expected goals for. in their sample together. 3.3 actual goals for, shooting about 10%. High event, both shot attempts for and against. They're a high event line. I think you can expect that with the San Jose Sharks with 1 week left in the season. But at least they're generating something. Peterson is playing 18 minutes a game on average over his last 5 games. So I agree with you on the San Jose side. That's where I would go. The problem is Dennis Mulligan moving to that second line that's a pretty big improvement for them. Like, I know Mulligan's been kind of kicked around the league a little bit. I think he's one of those guys that teams don't really know how to use, and Colorado's kind of starting to figure that out. And like the Colorado second line with Mulligan there, 43 shot attempts against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. That is really good defensively. That's the only thing that worries me with Hertl and Peterson, is that I think just adding Mulligan there has made them better than it otherwise would be. But that I agree with you, Peterson, Hertl is where I would go on San Jose if I were going to play them. But I think it's back to the Colorado top line here tonight. The top line over their last 100 minutes, 4.3 expected goals for per 60, 5.1 actual goals for, shooting under 12% while they're doing that. Like, being north of 5 goals per 60 minutes of 5-on-5 while you're shooting under 12% is just absolutely absurd shot generation. Like, they're just generating absolutely at will here. Devin Taves is on, like, as you mentioned, Devin Taves will be back on the top power play unit. So there are stacks you can make for the Avs, power play stacks you can make that can make it a little bit cheaper, right? Like, I would be playing Mikko Rantanen if I was playing Colorado, but you could do something like McKinnon, Rodriguez, Devin Taves on the blue line or something like that, and make a reasonably priced Colorado stack. But I really do like Colorado one again here tonight. I mean, Rantanen, 46 shots and 15 points in his last 10 games. Nathan McKinnon, if he didn't miss those 10 games or whatever, would probably be in the MVP conversation. And Evan Rodriguez, everybody knows how big a fan of him I am. So I really do like Colorado one here tonight. Coming in with heavy ownership, they'll be in the mid-teens because of the matchup. But I think with Devin Taves on the power play, you got JT Compher and Nichushkin on the second line on the power play. There are stacks you can make from Colorado that won't be chalky whatsoever. So I really do like Colorado one again here tonight.
Yeah, they're one of my favorites again. They'll be heavily owned, but plenty of ways to get different, like Cliffy said. Let's get to the last game of the night. Arizona Coyotes with a 2.4 total. Heading into Seattle, the Kraken have a 4 total. Connor Ingram probable. Philip Grubauer is confirmed. Do you have any interest in the Arizona one tonight?
Do I? Of course I do.
Yeah, they're combined 1% projected ownership right now. I just I don't know, man. Like, Seattle's had like a 4 total the last week. I have a hard time stacking them. Like, you want to do it, go to the McCann, Everlay, Beniers line. They've been generating what you said, like 2.6 expected goals for per 60. It is what it is. Nothing to write home about. I think my favorite line in this game is Arizona one.
Yeah, I mean, McCann, Beniers, Everly, I will give them credit. They have been generating a lot lately. I was looking at their last 3 weeks, 71 shot attempts per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. Like, that's a lot. That's a lot for anybody. I'm outside of like Matthew Tkachuk or any Matthew Tkachuk line. That's tremendous for Seattle. They're all playing around 17 and 19 minutes. I think that Seattle that McCann line is perfectly fine to play here at 5 to 6% ownership. No issue using them at all. The rest of the Seattle lines, like Schwartz, Wenberg, Geeky is kind of interesting because they're so cheap and they have been generating, man. I was looking at Wenberg and Schwartz. I know I make fun of Wenberg all the time, but Wenberg and Schwartz over the last 3 weeks, 3.2 expected goals for per 60 minutes of 5-on-5. That's pretty insane. The problem is they're only shooting 5%. If they could shoot 10%, they'd actually be a pretty good offensive line. Jaden Schwartz does have 17 shots in his last 5 games. I think I haven't seen any. I saw Oliver Bjorkstrand. I saw his wife had the kid. I didn't see if he was going to be back in the lineup tonight.
Yeah, I'm not sure either.
Yeah, assuming Bjorkstrand's out again here tonight, I don't have interest in Gordon Tolvanen. So I think Schwartz and Wenberg is actually a two-man you can kind of switch to, or Schwartz and Geeky if you want to just not play Wenberg. I think that's kind of a cheap filler you can look to here tonight at home against Arizona. On the Arizona side, the top line's still been generating 2.9 expected goals per 60 over the last 3 weeks, 3.5 actual goals. Keller, 36 shots over his last 10 games. The problem is Seattle's really been good defensively of late. All their lines, actually. The McCann line, right bang on 2 expected goals against per 60 minutes over the last 3 weeks. The Wenberg Schwartz line, under 2 expected goals against. Gord Bjorkstrand and Tolvanen was also under 2 expected goals against. I'm not sure what it is without Bjorkstrand, but long story short, you're going to need the goalies to fall on their face for Arizona to get there tonight. They're 17,300 on DraftKings. Like the Columbus top line, I think would be a line that I would also use. Like, I know I said I wasn't super high on the Kings, but I think I'd rather play the Kings top line than Arizona one here tonight. So I think they're playable. I just think there are other lines in that price range I'd rather play.
Yeah, that's fair. I think they're a decent MME. You don't need much to get over the field, and that kind of line. They have a 30-point projection. You know what I mean? With no ownership. So yeah. Lots of 28 teams, lots of defensemen. Obviously, Devin Tays.
Sorry, just got to jump in real quick. Yeah, no, Nick in chat said, I think he's back, referring to Bjorkstrand. And I was just looking at one of the Kraken blogs, and Bjorkstrand was at morning skate, so I'm assuming he's back in tonight. Yeah. Okay. So I guess Seattle has 3 playable lines and 3 brutal defensive lines for Arizona to face here tonight.
Bjorkstrand's had a weird season, but I think maybe whatever. We have 28 teams, lots of defensemen. Obviously, Devin Tays sticks out like a sore thumb at 4,900 in that matchup. Who else you like? And there's got to be some people you like.
I mean, Mikey Matheson for Montreal. Going to keep playing him, especially in a good matchup at home against Washington. Dougie Hamilton, same thing at home against Columbus. John Carlson's kind of interesting on the other side of that the Montreal-Washington game. Like, he's expensive. And it's to the point where, like, if you want to play like Carlson, Strome, and Ovechkin, like, it's a pretty expensive stack. I'm just trying to figure out how I'd use Carlson, but he's certainly in play. Devin Taves, like, number one with a bullet in the mid-price range. Other guys in that price range, Aaron Ekblad, Moritz Cedar. Jake Sanderson, obviously still running the power play for Ottawa. Noah Dobson seeing a little bit of a price drop. I don't know if it's necessarily a price drop. I think it's kind of accurate. He's not blocking shots anymore. And that's a problem because that's something Noah Dobson, he would put up shots and blocks. That was kind of why he was valuable outside of his point production. But at his price, I think he's fine. Same thing with Vince Dunn. It's the cheap guys that is really interesting here tonight. Darren Radish, 2,500. He played almost 18 minutes for Tampa Bay in their last game, assuming he's back in here tonight. Jonathan Kovacevic, I think he's 2,600 for Montreal. Don't mind him as well. Our boy, the Zub, Artem Zub, 3K. As long as Chychrun and Shabbat are out, he's going to have to play minutes. And this could be one of those games where he has to block like 5 or 6 shots or something like that. So those are some of the cheap guys I like. Obviously, Mario Ferraro is certainly back in play as well. Ryan Graves, if you don't want to play Dougie Hamilton, Ryan Graves, I think he's 3,900 in that matchup. Obviously, Henry Jokiharju. Buffalo's gone. Buffalo's basically just playing 4 defensemen now. And Jokiharju typically doesn't do anything in those minutes. He's basically like Eastern Conference. He's Eastern Conference Mikey Anderson at this point. Yeah. But at least he's getting the minutes and he's super cheap. Yam Cork. Saw Tony DeAngelo's getting healthy scratched here tonight, and Tony D and Ristolainen were on the top power play unit in the last game. I got to think it's going to be Yam Cork and Ristolainen running it tonight, right? He's probably going to have to get more minutes on top of that. He's only 32 or 3,300, so don't mind him as well. And I'll mention Mark Giordano for Toronto. He might have to block some shots here tonight as well.
I know there's a week left in the season. I don't want to jinx it, but are you a bit surprised that Torts and Tony D haven't had a bench blow up?
Well, I mean, that we've seen, right?
Yeah.
Who knows what's happened behind closed doors? I don't know. I think Torts is too preoccupied with making Kevin Hayes' life a living hell to actually really care about anybody else.
For a decade now.
It's incredible, man. He hates that guy.
Yeah, hated him on the. I hated him on the Rangers.
It's just like, I swear to God, if it was up to Torts, like he would just drop him off in the middle of Nebraska somewhere with a hockey stick in his bag and $50 in his pocket and say, "Good luck with the rest of your life, Kevin."
Yeah, that's classic Torts. Man, like goalie would actually be kind of neat if there wasn't Min Price, Devin Levi. Obviously, Saros at 7,100 sticks out. Anyone else you liking?
I mean, that's basically it.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of those two goalies for me here tonight. There are others that I don't mind. Brossois, he's going to start against Los Angeles. Don't mind that, especially with like no Fiala, no Velarde takes a lot of the scoring potential, like playmaking potential, I should say, out of the lineup. I think Marc-Andre Fleury on the road is perfectly fine as well in his matchup. But with Saros at 7,100 at home and Devin Levi at 6,500, I think those are the two goalies I'm looking at the most.
Yeah. I mean, like, I guess you could play Sorokin at home for 7,400. But, like, Tampa is never, like, a massive shot volume team. Just, like, trying to think outside the box here. But the box is very large, and you can't really get out of it. Alex Leon. Like, I don't want to play Alex Leon. Like, he's been good, but it's Alex Leon. I guess, like, Ville Husso, if you're trying to get a bit contrarian, but like you don't really need to get contrarian with goalies. You just need the points.
You don't need contrarian, you don't need a contrarian take with 28 goalies starting tonight.
Yeah. So I'm just kind of talking out my ass here. I'm on the Levi or Saros as well. Those are my two guys. Be looking for your hat trick pick.
He's going to be chalky. And he's expensive, but I would just want to shout him out because he's had an absolutely unbelievable season, and I think he gets to 50 goals tonight in spectacular fashion. Mikko Rantanen.
He's had an unbelievable season, yeah. I'm going to go with Pavel Buchnevich sticking it to his old team. And,
Buchnevich and Tarasenko dueling hat tricks tonight in the same game.
Yeah, that'd be hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or maybe a Sammy Blais hat trick to get Haas all riled up, but no, let's not get a Sammy Blais.
Yeah, let's not get too crazy.
Let's tone it down. Let's relax. We're gonna go with Pavel Buchnevich. Yeah, we will be back on Monday for the last week of the season. We have shows Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, and it will close out the regular season there. So for Cliffy, I am Josh. Go Jeff Carter shutdown line tonight. Love me some Boldy. Good luck, everybody. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Happy Easter, everybody.
Yeah.
We'll see you on Monday.
Mario, it's time to go.